Hi, welcome to week 2, the Fable of Geranium. And one of the things I want to say to you is when I self-published the original deck, I went by the names of the fables because the fables are what came through to me. And what you're going to notice in this section, every one of our fable sections, our chakra sections, are in 7-week packages. So this first 7 weeks, if you will, even though it's our second week together, are going to be the red cards. And what I want you to notice, and I think I may have touched on this in the intro, each card, each fable has a particular placement in the 7 cards. So 7 chakra, 7 fables or cards, if you will, within each. So when we look at the first one of Geranium, what you're looking at is a double red because it's first position, first chakra. So when we look next week at the second card, it's going to have an emotional overtone because it's second chakra. Let's stay on this one. A couple of things I want to point out to you right away. If you have the cards as well, I'll be giving you some hints as we go. One of the things you want to notice is that in the book, it's going to say renewal, and then under it is geranium. Now, what happened when the angels came and told me these fables after my near-death experience 30 years ago? Oh, it was that long ago. One of the things that happened was they would tell me the story, and I would see it in vivid color and I would write it down. But one thing that came through very clearly was the first word was the key. And so what I started using when I did the original self-published version was that it was the key word, renewal, was the key underneath the title of the fable. So what happens here is you'll notice it's reversed. It says renewal geranium. Well, actually, the fable is geranium. So the reason that becomes important is the key word, the key, is what begins to unlock the idea of the actual fable. And if we look at that as an overarching idea in this particular fable, geranium really is about landing on your feet. And it's also about roots, being uprooted. And remember, the flower, the plant of geranium, is one of the few ones that you can cut and then you can throw it. I knew that was coming. And you can just replant it. I've got Owen. Stop, buddy. They fight over food. So they argue with each other. So a couple things I want to say. The message of the week here. I want you to begin this journey with me with an intention. Every time I've had a fable group, anytime we've set intentions, anytime we've done this as a mastermind, I want you to treat this as your personal mastermind. I want you to right away imagine here that the roots, your roots, are growing deep into the ground and they've gone to a certain level. Well, I want them to go deeper for you. And going deeper is going beyond what you know in this moment. Beliefs are always fear-based because we're trying to change them. So knowing is faith-based. So when we look at that difference, and I'm using faith as a belief in something greater than yourself. So when we look at geranium, right, that plant, you can just literally clip one off, throw it in dirt, and it'll regrow. So what I'd like you to get is that the Monday lesson is to read the fable. And I've read it 100 times, and every time I read it, I learn something new. I can't encourage you enough to read the fables, and in this case, read the fable. And then what I'd like you to do is go to the little book, if you have the card deck, and notice how the legend abbreviates the full fable. Because what you're going to do is you're going to see the deeper nuances of what renewal is to you based on what you notice. You know, I've had people look at this and say, wow, the person who did that to her was really mean. And you see, we're always playing all the parts in one of these fables. So if we look at the woman who throws geranium out, is probably doing her a favor. Have you ever thrown someone out and somehow it saved their life? I know I have. So, and it's happened to me. So sometimes when we look at these fables, we have to ask ourselves, What part am I playing right now around renewal? Am I feeling that I have been uprooted? For instance, are you still carrying perhaps, and I see this a lot with people saying, I need to get a job, but yet they haven't understood that they were thrown out of their other job. They were fired. It's a very dramatic experience. And so sometimes we have to go, you know what? I feel like geranium here, but I'm really angry at that woman who has transplanted her without her permission. So some of the times what we're looking at here, and I talk about this in that book, the concept of diving under the wave and going deeper inside. So when we look at the idea of renewal, which part are you playing in geranium? And look at the characters. I'd like you to notice how many characters there are, how many you see, and note them below. Note on here, gosh, I noticed that she's in that landfill. And that landfill is growing with her in it. So I want you to get that sometimes we're growing ourselves out of things that don't support us. And we get a chance to reroute and change at any time. So I want to encourage you to really look at and go back to the idea of setting intention. Now, something that's important here is asking yourself, what do I really want? What is it that I really think that I want to create? Now, just to give you an idea, and when I did my very first mastermind, I did it in California, and of course, everybody in California is creative. And you know, like artsy people. So one of them wanted to win an Academy Award, another one wanted to have a best-selling book, one person wanted to produce a movie. I have to tell you, they all did that. And they all achieved what they were going to do. And that was exciting. But one of the things I want to say is that it takes the diligence. And I want also, the important thing here is when we start with the first chakra is your DNA. It's where you've come from. It's the roots. It's where the beliefs you source your life from exist. Think about that. That's the idea, that where we got these ideas come from. Like, you know, well, gosh, money doesn't grow on trees. I'm like, really? Because I think it could. You know, I always laugh when I see an arborist, because they're like, money has grown on trees for them because they made their living that way. So sometimes we have to look at some of the old ideas that we've come in with. And when I say beliefs are fear-based, and knowing is faith-based. And I'll give you an example. And I tell the story all the time. I was years ago, I was at a bar with a bunch of friends, and we're all standing around. It's somebody's birthday, and a now very famous actor was at the bar as well with all of us, who's part of the group. And he spins around on the bar stool and he looks at me and he says, "Do you really believe this beep that you do?" And in that moment, I said, "No, I don't." He just looked at me and I said, "I know it." You know, I mean, how can I believe something that just happens to me? You know, I have spirits speak to me or get hits on things. And by the way, we all get hits. We all get impressions. There is a way to be trained to learn how to access and use that energy. So, and that's a different conversation, but that's what I do. And so I was explaining to him, and suddenly here's this like really, you know, arrogant guy, and he goes, "Oh, because you can't argue with, no, I know it." You know, it's like, well, how do you know it? Well, I don't know how to tell you I know it. It's kind of like, how do you know you're acting? You know, it's like, I'm reading lines off a page. Yeah, I'm hearing stuff. So I think what I'm saying to you is that the belief is fear-based, because I would have had to defend that. Oh yes, of course I believe it, and here's why it works. But if I don't have to defend it, it's based on my faith. You can't shake what I know to be true. I can't shake what you know to be true. So for you, I'm going to invite you to go inside and ask yourself, what do I know to be true? Right? So that's another thing. Now let's talk about a couple things in here. The message of the week, remember that geranium is about renewal, meaning its beginnings. And that becomes very important. And of course, there's my tip in there, so I don't need to tell you my tip because I'm here. So you can read that. Please, 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 as I say this to you, I really encourage you to read this. So when you do this, I want to share with you that read the message of the week. See what comes forward to you, because this is about a week you're planning in your life. And you're the only one that can make these shifts. We can be present for you while you go through them, but we can't do it for you. And that's a big part of this. I think a lot of people come and they expect someone who's intuitive to do it for them. And I think my thing is, I want to empower you to do this and get this work, you know? So when you look at my tip, these are just kind of my insights into it. I'm giving you different insight. I'm giving you insight from 4 years later, having written this 4 years ago, so you get a sense of, oh, and even I may have something else to say next year. So the other thing I want to say is that there's always in here, it'll always say set your intention for the week. And this is a very important thing you'll hear me say through all this work. And in any course I do, I have the level 1 training and all that. I always say our inner reality reflects our outer reality. So what's going on internally is going to show up in our life, whether or not we like it. So just remember that that's a big part of this, and really ask yourself, if you lost a job, let's say if you got let go from a job, and I'm not going to try and make it sound spiritual speak, I'm just going to talk like a person, okay? So if somebody fired you, really look at, did I have an exit attitude 6 months ago? And it took a while for them to catch up to that. So really look at, wait a minute, I really didn't want to be there, you know? Or the idea is that you put in so much time, you feel somebody owes you. And the thing is that the thing about people owing us is it keeps them on the hook, and it allows us to keep them responsible for our existence. And so that becomes very tough stuff. And we probably will touch on some of that here. That is stuff I touch on more in a different course. And again, that stuff I can put a link up and post for you so you can find out what these other things are. I want to stay on this. So let's talk about the color reflection. You know, the biggest thing is that the original title when I self-published this was Color Wisdom Cards. And the idea of color really came to me because that was where my study was. Now, what's interesting is when I did the research, because I was asked to write a book that's actually coming out this year on the essentials for chakra, when I did the research, we, the Western culture, really integrated the colors with the rainbow, right, with our 7 chakras. So the idea is that we are very influenced by color. We are very drawn by it. And so the idea of our first chakra being red actually came out of Esalen, which is in Northern California, in actually around the 1977, in that time frame. Do you know that is actually the Western real roots of our chakra? Now, the reason this becomes important with geranium is that just because something's newer doesn't mean it won't work. I really want to put that into your brain, is that this can work for you. And so when we look at the color reflection was the first inkling that came through. Now, if you look at this, obviously the color reflection is on Tuesday. Why do I do this in this order? Well, because it's a practice, right? So you can read the Fable, look at the intention for the week, and I would encourage you to look at that. It says Monday. You can look at it on Sunday, but I'm thinking just look at it, take that in. And by the way, you can read the color reflection on Tuesday. You can read the journal journey. There's a journaling exercise there. You don't have to do anything, but read it. And, you know, I tell you, have you ever done this? And I know I said this in some of the early things, but, you know, specifically with these, you know, have you ever read something and it makes no sense to you? Well, you can highlight it and say, this makes no sense to me, and circle it, because I think it's more important what you don't know than what you do know. And by the way, you know, do yourself a favor. If you're one of those copious note takers, like everything becomes, I want to just let you experience this journey, and I'm going to offer you a suggestion that the only notes you take should be specifically around your intention. What is it you really want? What do you want your life to look like? What is it you're looking to create in this year? That's what geranium's about. What roots do you need to dig into? How much do you need to grow your root and your foundation, because it's your foundation, right? Your platform. How much do you need to grow that? That's what Geranium says, in order to take the next step. So if you think of each fable as being a lesson in a week that gives you an awareness that gets you one step closer to your true inner reality that you want to see show up in your life. And that means with the first chakra, we work it that way. Now, I'm just going to go over this briefly because I wanted to go through this with you and not make it like a tome, you know, like, okay, so the finding your inspiration. By the way, one of the things I want to say is you're going to see this every week. You'll see what does blank say to you, which is in this case, it's geranium. And you get an idea of, sometimes I'll say, write down 3 adjectives, write down this. Go ahead and you can do it. You know what? I'm going to invite you to do this whole journey wrong. Do it your way. Do what it looks like for you. There's no right way to do this. So if adjectives aren't coming forward to you, just write down 3 words of anger or 3 words around your dreams. Do it in your way, but I would say to stay somewhat within the structure of what you're doing. Don't bring in other tools, because the idea is to learn these tools so that you can really know what this journey is doing for you. Now, remember that beginnings always have sadness to them. And I think that's so important, because one of the things that, and I think I shared this, gosh, I may have talked about this in a different class, so I'll share it here. I had a client who had released, like, I guess 10 dress sizes. She went from a size 26 to 16. And she was so sad because she had a couple outfits that she loved that were when she was fuller, you know? And I said, you know, get rid of them. Because what happens is you're holding on to the past, and you can't build a future by holding on to the past. And she said, oh, you're right. So really, what do you need to release? That becomes an important part of the red chakra. What is not sitting on your platform to help you grow? What has been weakening your foundation? Are there things you need to look at that will strengthen your foundation? So then when we look at making a connection on, Wednesday's journal journey, the journal journey. And that means journeying with the fable and writing about it. I'm going to give you another idea here that you can write about the characters in the fable too, if that's coming forward. Like, you know, you can write about your boss who fired you. And I'm using that as an example. A boss who fired you, and that character is the same as the woman who pulls geranium out of her pot. So the reason I'm saying this to you is that the important thing is that you make this journey your own. And when you get together with other people, which I encourage you to do, this entire program was developed with other people. And I love that interaction. However, that said, the Thursday is make a connection. That there's a solo journey and there's a group exercise. Now, I love the group exercise because I'm like, hands-on, I like to be in a room with you. You know, let's all hang out, you know, oh, let's all cry together. You know, I did a lot of this work with my dad, who was a World War II vet, and I'd be like, he'd go, what are you doing this week? I go, oh, I'm going to this thing, we're going to cry and hug trees and, you know, cry about our family. He was like, oh, great, I'll go with you. So we'd both be like, you know, crying next to each other in like an exercise, you know. So I love that feeling of being together as we process things, because I think it empowers us. So if you don't have someone to do this with, please mention it below. I will be interacting with you here on YouTube. And part of that reason is because the reason I'm not doing it in other venues is because the classes I lead, I'm already in those Facebook groups, really interacting with those folks. So it's a lot easier for me to keep things, you know, separate. So that said, I think the Thursday is one of the most important things. And I would really encourage you to look at, gosh, are there some people I can get together with? Are there a couple people I could do this with? Even reading some of it aloud to each other. And so I really encourage you to try to do the group exercises with other people if you can. This is what makes this work, all of it, come alive, is that when I can give it away to you, you can get, oh my gosh. Now, remember, and a couple tips about the cards. Now, really, this journey is so personal, so solo, you don't need the card deck, but I am going to say that when geranium shows up, remember it's a beginning, and there is some release that happens with beginnings. So even when someone says to me, we may see renewal about getting a new job. I'm using job a lot tonight, so I'll stay with that. It may be about getting a new job, but when you have that card that comes up that's about, let's say it's a job, remember that it's going to have some sadness, and only you can decide what are the three aspects. Remember the three parts of a fable: darkness, dawn, and light. You learned that in week 1. You learned that there are the aspects, if you will, of the fable. This book is going to show you the aspects of the chakra within the fable. So it's a little bit different, but I want to keep differentiating it. So what's the darkness, dawn, and light of geranium? That's going to be the question for you, and where are you? Remember, the goal is not necessarily to be in the light. I know a lot of people are like, but I want to be in the light. No, sometimes the best information you can have is that I'm in the darkness about that. Sometimes you can be not aware of how much work you've done and think you're starting something when really it can be a completion. And you might say, oh, I am finished with that journey. I am now the size I want to be. And part of that is releasing those clothes so I can start at that 16, you see. So when we look at, oh, am I in the dawn? Is it starting to dawn on me that I'm still feeling sore about that boss? And yet I say I want to move on, but I'm not, because I'm still holding on to that. So that could be the dawn of geranium. The light of geranium is recognizing that even being ripped from something can be the best thing. But again, that becomes that esoteric thing that some people go, well, I had one woman say, well, I was fired from my job. I'm looking for a new job, and it was very traumatic, but it was for the best, and it was all, and I'm like going, can I just tell you something? She said, yeah. I said, you sound mad as hell. She was like, what? I said, you sound angry. You sound enraged. She was in a monotone when she said it. She was like, what do you mean? I said, I hear a lot of sadness. And all of a sudden she just went into that sad place and said, I really am. It was unfair. And I did all this stuff. And I said, that's the place you have to be. So if you notice that place, sometimes we rush ourselves to the light of going, it was for the best. And it's like, what happens when we rush ourselves from darkness, dawn into light is that we're going to repeat it. We're going to keep doing it until we go to, oh, I've got to go darkness, dawn, and light. Because the awareness happens with the complete journey, not in getting there. The point of this is that when I recognized the pain for me of starting and going through that journey of completion, then I was able to go, oh, okay, I'm in the dawn of this. It's starting to dawn on me that didn't feel good. But the truth is, I've got a new beginning that's coming up now, and I'm going to need what do I need? A new platform to support. In this case of this woman who went from a 26 to a 16 size, she needed a new platform, first chakra, to support that geranium passage. So we have to look at, even if you're in the light, you still need, no matter which darkness, dawn, or light you're in with this fable, you still need that idea of the process. Now, that becomes important because when we really get this, and by the way, everything I'm saying to you, you can go, oh, I don't like any of that. I'm doing it this way. Do it. Don't think I have the end all be all here. I'm just telling you my experience with these fables. But remember, they came through me, not to me. I don't own them. You do. These are something that have changed my life and helped me. That means I can share with you my experience, but I want this journey to be yours. So it says, if you're working in a group, recall a time when you got dumped. So this is really, a lot of this I talk in plain language. There's not going to be, you're not going to see a lot of frou-frou, and then we get into the, group bowing. It's something like that. I believe that there's such a thing as practical spirituality, and being, I don't think spirituality helps us if we're saying, F you, and then I hope that everyone today has a nice day. I mean, what is that? It's like, be real, right? So geranium is really your start of where are your roots? What are you believing that may be limiting you. Now, when we talk about limiting beliefs, I'm telling you, beliefs are like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. It's like, oh, let me put this belief over here. I want to, because what happens? A belief is like, I'm not enough, so now I have to like be enough, and so I want to say I'm worthy. Well, what happens is you're putting it on top of each other. So what I say is that if you feel that you're not enough for today, that's okay. Make it okay so that you can find the worthiness in that. Because every moment of every aspect of every chakra, every darkness, dawn, and light has the answer built into it. And you already know it. So what I'm doing is I'm reminding you of who you are. And this memory is a cellular memory. This isn't something that you're going to remember from school, but you will remember who you are. And that's the beauty. I'm getting truth bumps. I love that. Now, a couple things, and then we're going to wrap up. Like I said, I love the exercises. If you do nothing in the week, 2 things I really suggest. Please read the Fable. The Fable is everything. If there's a week where you're so busy and crazy, take those 10 minutes or 5 minutes before you watch the next week to just read the Fable, and that's enough. And if sometimes you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna read the Fable and think about it, that's okay. Set the intention each week. Remember that you have these dreams. You came here to do something, and remember that your wounding always reveals your purpose. So that's where I say don't try to hide it. Reveal it, because that's the beauty of who you are. Friday will always have the meditation moment. It will give you some thoughts on meditating with it. And I'm going to be, as we go, I'm going to probably be letting you know about some downloads. Some I'll give away, some you can get for very little, but I want to kind of let you know so that as I go, so that you'll be able to have access to some deeper stuff. And when I say, I'm thinking of the meditation because there's a download I have where I read all the meditations, and I want to say embellished a little. Now, also, feel free for yourself to take that meditation, go into your iPhone or your Android and record it, and then close your eyes and listen to it. Read the Fable, record it for yourself, and then listen to your own voice. One of the things I want you to get used to is hearing how you occur in the world. Geranium will really help you do that. The other thing, as before we turn the page and we go into week 3 of Soulmate, I want to remind you that this is your journey. Please pick something that really resonates with you. So for example, last year mine was I want to have 2 projects sold, 2 books, and I did. It nearly killed me because it was a lot of work, but I got it done. And what I want to say to you is that it's who you become in the process. It's not the arrival. It's the journey that makes it really interesting, and the ahas will come as you do this work. That said, please remember that Saturday and Sunday is our spiritual day of rest. I'm really going to encourage you not to try to do the exercises on the weekend to catch up. If you didn't do it, let it go. Really let it go. Because one of the things that's most important here is that all of this energy needs cooking time. So by the time you get to Saturday, that's your day to do nothing with this. Let it go. And then if I had meetings on Sunday nights, so I did like Sunday night meetings, but it's really up to you. I really encourage you to get together with a couple people, because it really makes it a fun journey. Even if you do it with a spouse or a sibling or a friend, you can even Skype people. I really encourage you to do that. I know that I went long, but I really want to give you some information as we go. Next week, we are going to look at it's going to be week 3, and we are going to look at the Soulmate card and what the real meaning behind that card is. So I look forward to seeing you next week. Please put your comments below. Tell your friends. This is a very open forum. I would love to have people share the books, the information, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. Here we go.